Forge Master of Fuses. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 601 Alliance. Every road has its twists and turns. Even though they knew the road was not easy to walk and there were few people walking with them, the Song family father and son still supported each other and walked on with difficulty. But even though they were all powerful, the progress was still slow. In addition to the people in the Blue Sea Mecha Academy, they could only trust the Blackwater Army led by Marshal Blake and his son, and they had never thought that the Field family would stand firmly with them. After the three parties completed the preliminary tests internally and fully isolated the suspects, they finally reluctantly formed an alliance. Moreover, it was an alliance without any treaty, without any binding force, and as loose as it could not be. But since they have become an alliance, they have to do something, even if it is just a show, right? No, the Blake father and son almost emptied the Alliance Military Academy, and the Field family also sent many scientific researchers from the Cheyenne's Military Academy. It is a pleasure to have friends coming from afar. Although it is difficult to distinguish between these individuals and enemies, Song Yuanqi still bravely accepted them and distributed them all to Grandpa Li Bangsha and Tang Fan. With 2 major directions and 12 research teams, the 2 people were so busy that their heels hit their heads. In Song Yuanqi's eyes, the person who seemed to be a hot potato was a treasure that could be recycled as long as the confidentiality work was done well. There are 2 types of confidentiality. One is active. Things like reading confidentiality regulations and cultivating confidentiality awareness all belong to this category. Children who have been trained since childhood have a particularly good sense of confidentiality. For example, Major General Song Si. The other is passive. For example, put you in the evil land created by Jim Field, where no birds poop, no turtles lay eggs, no star network coverage, and no signal forever, and then strictly guard all the passages that can be used to get out. No matter how powerful you are, if you can't contact the outside world, even the most tight-lipped people can passively keep secrets. Song Yuanqi and Marshal Song expressed strong agreement with the proposal of Mr. Li Bangsha and Tang Fan. So, Tang Fan and others, who had left the evil land for only a month, returned here with big bags and small bags. However, she was passive last time, but she was active this time. She had no one to turn to for help last time and could only support herself. But this time she had no worries about food and clothing, and she had family leave every now and then. Tang Fan, who was obsessed with scientific research and could not extricate herself, and even almost forgot about her boyfriend, said that she was very satisfied. So, when Tang Fan's scientific research project came to an end, she suddenly remembered that she had a boyfriend who had just taken office, and she was shocked to find that she and her boyfriend had been out of touch for a full 18 days. The key is that this is not the worst. The worst thing is that she has entered the scope of the land of sin. And, according to her and Mr. Li Bangsha's requirements, the land of sin has long been filled with star network signal blockers. Now, even if she wants to kill her boyfriend and wants to contact him, she can only wait for a short vacation once a month. Is this considered shooting herself in the foot? Not only that, she has to pretend that nothing has happened and she doesn't miss the star network at all. Apart from smiling on her face and roaring in her heart, she can't do anything. Tang Fan's heart is simply. No wonder there are so many researchers who are still single at such an old age. It turns out that it's not that I don't want to talk, but that it's useless to talk. Chapter 602. Most people would regret it if they encountered such a situation. But is Tang Fan an ordinary person? As a woman who carries the Tang's mecha on her shoulders, Miss Tang Fan never wastes time on lamenting the passing of time or sighing. She applied for a month's leave as quickly as possible, set an alarm for herself, and then simply put aside her guilt towards her boyfriend and re-entered a new round of scientific research. Song Si, who was busy with work and waiting for news from his girlfriend, seriously underestimated the importance of scientific research and overestimated his weight in Miss Tang Fan's mind. He waited for a month and a half to hear a few words from his girlfriend, and he cried when he spoke too much. What's more tragic is that even though she finally got online, Miss Tang Fan, who has always been thin-skinned, was afraid that the chat records on the Star Network would be turned out and checked by others, so she was careful and reserved in her words throughout the process. This doesn't look like a love affair, It's just a cosplay of the cowherd and the weaver girl meeting on the Magpie Bridge. This incident directly depressed Major General Song Si. He wanted to go to his girlfriend's house and wake her up, who didn't understand romance at all, and teach her how to be in love. However, Major General Song Si looked at the more difficult things on hand, and his eyes swept over every busy colleague around him, and sighed silently. He didn't deserve sweet love. Forced into the vast ocean of work, Song Si was as unhappy as he wanted. Adhering to the excellent quality of putting oneself in others' shoes, Major General Song spread his bad mood to everyone around him in his own unique way. For the first time, the people of the capital star saw so many not very harmful, but extremely insulting operations. There was a new understanding of Major General Song Si's combat effectiveness. For a long time, no matter colleagues or opponents, they all avoided Song Si. I don't know which master secretly gave Song Si a nickname Ghost Si's Sorrow. At the beginning, everyone just called Song Si behind his back. Who knew that Major General Song Si had too many tricks and this nickname was too special, so it spread accidentally. Even Miss Tang Fan, who was busy with scientific research in a sinful place far away without internet access, had heard a little about it. Others were afraid of him, but Miss Tang Fan was not. While they were still online, she teased him with those hearsay stories and this nickname. Some things, you don't feel when you do them, but when others say them, especially when your girlfriend says them, it's simply too much. Song Si, who has her 10,000 points in his heart, didn't dare to do anything to Tang Fan, but it didn't mean he would just let it go. Since everyone paid so much attention to him and gave him such a high honor, he must not let everyone down. From then on, whenever he met and greeted someone, he would not forget to add his famous nickname. When doing things, they become more and more ruthless. The harm and insult increase at the same time, and the consequences. It is said that for a long time, in the capital star, the mention of the name of Major General Song Si could stop children from crying at night. In this way, Song Si went from being a child of other people's families to a negative example for parents, ascended the throne of the alliance's annual figure, and became a synonym for attracting hatred, firmly attracting the attention of all forces. Chapter 603. After being teased by her, Song Si not only did not repent, but became even more frivolous. The clothes, bags, and jewelry that the little girl liked were delivered to her continuously. At the same time, some absurd behaviors that he would never do in the past also reached Miss Tang Fan's ears. Looking at those useless things, Tang Fan, who is smart, has a different interpretation. Although Song Si did not behave properly, he had a strict family education since he was a child, and he never relied on his status as the son of a marshal to bully men and women and act as an accomplice to the tiger. Knowing that she was not interested in these things that could not be eaten, drunk, or studied, he still insisted on sending them to her. There can only be one explanation: this guy is acting. A one-man show that uses her as a tool, written, directed, and performed by himself. The purpose? Probably to attract other people's attention? But even she can see the clues. I don't know how many people can be fooled. In order to let Major General Song Si play the role of love-brained, Miss Tang Fan returned these things, unilaterally cut off contact with someone, and continued to do scientific research. Although she also guessed Tang Fan's thoughts, Song Si was still successfully angered by the little sister when she saw the returned things. When a new round of buying and buying began again, Song Si's temper became more and more irritable. With him as the center and the diameter of the capital star as the radius, any act of showing affection can be regarded as a provocation by him, causing a mess of trouble. Major General Song Si's outburst fully demonstrated a love-brained who is crazy about love, and banged against the wall for love. This performance not only tossed most of the relatives and friends around him, as well as the people around him, bringing them indelible memories, but also successfully dispelled the suspicion of some people, and won effective time and opportunities for Marshal Song Yuanqi Song's private investigation activities. Although Song Si's reputation was declining, Song Yuanqi, the Marshal of Song, had gained a lot. His allies had more than doubled without him noticing, and most of them were the older generation with good moral character. With these old gentlemen who were still making use of their remaining energy, the work could be carried out much more smoothly. The burden on Song Yuanqi's shoulders was suddenly much lighter, and his eyes unconsciously fell on Song Si. Although this child played the role of a love-brained person, he was not a brainless person. Except that his judgment was a little weaker than usual, His temper was a little worse than usual, and he was a little more sensitive to the sour smell of love. Everything else was quite normal. Because most of Song Si's older brothers and sisters died in accidents, Song Yuanqi and his wife had always kept him in custody. They had never seen him make mistakes on his errands, let alone such a presumptuous look. Song Yuanqi always felt that now, Song Si, with a bright smile and shouting at his personal soldiers, was what a young man should look like. Whether it was doing something good or making a harmless joke, he was free to do what he wanted, without worrying about his identity as the son of a marshal or a major general of the alliance, and he could enjoy his life freely. This idea came out of nowhere. But it took root in Song Yuanqi's mind, making him dare not take back his decision. He only hoped that he could use the opportunity of the mission to live happily for another day, another day. Chapter 604 Good Show. Song Si's play has not yet been finished, but Miss Tang Fan has made her debut in a brand new posture. Of course, Miss Tang Fan can't be as childish as Song Si. Miss Tang Fan is a ruthless person who doesn't say much. She only released the news that Tang's Metro will hold a new product launch conference. Not only the capital star, but also the people of the entire alliance have all attracted attention. Although not everyone can drive a mecha, who doesn't have a friend who can drive a mecha? When Miss Tang Fan held a new product launch conference, it can only be described as a street full of people. Even Song Yuanqi and Song Si, father and son, were confused and looked at the optical computer, concentrating on waiting for the new mecha to appear. It was not until the camera was brought to the protagonist of this new product launch conference and saw the full picture of the new mecha that the father and son came back to their senses. This is not a new mecha, it is obviously a product that the expeditionary force has already eliminated. Even so, it was solemnly launched by Tang Fan in the name of a concept mecha. Not only that, Tang Fan, who is well versed in routine, took advantage of the fact that everyone had never seen the materials of this series of mechas, and said that the materials were rare, hinting that the mechas could not be mass-produced for the time being, and that they should buy them as soon as possible. The first batch of production was only 100 units, which could completely make mecha enthusiasts anxious. This is no longer a matter of money or hand speed. What they are competing for is their soft power. For a while, the video requests on the optical computers of the Tang Mecha executives never stopped. Before Song Yuanqi and Song Si could make arrangements, some things that they could only dream of but could not reach were already in Tang Fan's hands. This wave of operations blinded many people's titanium alloy dog eyes, and even the old fox Song Yuanqi couldn't help but give Tang Fan a thumbs up. Miss Tang Fan waved her hands reservedly, saying that there was no need to be excited, these were all basic operations. She got a lot of things in exchange, but it didn't mean that these things were all useful. Song Yuanqi and Song Si still needed to verify them one by one. After the father and son finally verified the news, Tang Fan slowly launched the second batch of 1,000 new mechas. 1,000 mechas may seem like a lot, but for the Alliance mecha market, which has a huge demand, it is almost the same as a limited edition. If Tang Fan releases mechas at this speed, those rich people who are so poor that they only have money left will not be able to grab even the first 5 batches. As for the ordinary people who have to scrape together money to buy a mecha, there may be hope if another 50 batches are released. Therefore, Miss Tang Fan, who has absolute say, successfully scooped up 2 more waves. Relying on Miss Tang Fan's magical operation, the work progress of the Song family father and son is simply advancing by leaps and bounds. After the veins gradually become clear, it becomes easier to settle accounts. Before Miss Tang Fan's batch of new mechas was officially popularized, those leaders who colluded with Jim Field to create the Land of Sin were finally controlled by Song Yuanqi and others. Among them, 1/3 are a group of talented and beautiful women like Maya Smith. Most of them are also like Maya Smith, controlled by others, wandering around officials of all sizes in various departments of the Alliance. Their main job is to understand these people's preferences and cater to their needs. Wine, sex, money, and power, as long as you dare to ask for them, they will give them. However, pie does not fall from the sky. Greed always comes at a price. Falling into the hands of these women may be more terrible than having nothing. Chapter 605 Goodbye Anna Smith. Song Yuanqi pulled out the radish and brought out the mud, caught this group of women, and implicated hundreds of officials from all departments of the Alliance. From the minister of a department to the guard at the gate, they were all controlled by this group of women. The number of people involved and the span were unprecedented. Not to mention the people of the alliance, even Song Yuanqi, who personally took charge of the operation, was shocked. So when he swept the first college of the alliance, the pharmacy, he was particularly calm. Such calmness, in the eyes of some people, changed its taste. They called this behavior cold-blooded. For a while, there were all kinds of comments about Song Yuanqi on the star internet. Song Yuanqi gladly accepted those fair comments, whether positive or negative, and even the glorious title given to him by netizens Iron Judge. Hell is empty, and the devil is on earth. It's good to be an Iron Judge and sweep away all the injustices in the world. What about those keyboard warriors who are black for the sake of black? Song Yuanqi was not afraid. Having been a marshal for so many years, he was well aware of the principle of being cautious. The evidence in his hand was solid, the process was clear and reasonable, and he was not afraid of investigation at all. The haters said a few words at most. Alliance Marshal was dissatisfied with his work and had a black face throughout the process. Song Yuanqi's violent law enforcement caused social panic in the capital. Song Yuanqi did not respect the human rights of prisoners. Facing these haters who disregarded the safety of the people of the alliance and did not hesitate to expose their identities to disgust him, Song Yuanqi felt bad. But looking at the prison, it could not be fuller. Marshal Song could only curl his lips helplessly, collect the evidence, and wait for the matter here turned before settling the accounts later. Although the crime of slandering the Marshal of the Alliance was not serious, it could also make these brainless haters drink a pot. From arrest to interrogation, and then to the military court trial, this activity named killing lasted for a full 3 months. But this does not mean that this matter is over. In the mud that was brought out, there was an old acquaintance of Miss Tang Fan, named Anna Smith. When Song Si and his men found her in a closed basement, her pale and thin arms were tightly hugging a half-human, half-beast genetically modified human, and she was whispering a lullaby that most people in the alliance were familiar with. In the dark basement, her slightly hoarse voice echoed, with an indescribable ghostliness. Song Si, who had always been bold and daring, couldn't help but shudder at this moment. Without any professional guidance, Song Si could be sure that this girl was definitely not mentally normal with just one look. In order to avoid unnecessary conflicts, Song Si listened to the lullaby more than 20 times with goosebumps all over her body. Until Anna Smith coaxed her to sleep, Song Si asked Song Tong to inject her with a tranquilizer. Just as she was about to take her and the thing in her arms back, she was stopped by Song Tong. She tremblingly took out a vital signs tester and slowly approached the genetically modified human in Anna Smith's arms. 1 minute passed. 10 minutes passed. Half an hour passed. The instrument in Song Tong's hand seemed to be broken. And it didn't move at all. Song Si looked at it for a long time and couldn't help but ask, "What do you mean?" Song Tong didn't say a word, but silently moved the instrument towards Anna Smith. The next second, the light of the instrument began to flash rapidly and a piercing alarm sounded. Song Si's expression suddenly became ugly. "You mean, this guy is dead?" Chapter 606 Old Video. Song Tong shrugged, silently put away the instrument in his hand, and said in a deep voice, "This instrument was jointly developed by the Blue Sea Mecha Academy and Tang's Mecha. It is based on the various indexes of human vital signs stipulated by the Alliance Pharmacy Association. In this sense, it should be considered dead." At this critical moment, Song Tong was still arguing with him. Major General Song Si's temper suddenly came up. He raised his hand and gave Song Tong a brain slam, and said in a deep voice, "Speak human language." Song Tong curled his lips and said reluctantly, "Under normal circumstances, if a human becomes like this, it means that this guy is dead. However, as a genetically modified person, who knows what the other half of his genes are? What if this species has some deep hibernation skills?" When Song Si heard this, he silently glanced at the gray-black object curled up in Anna Smith's arms, and rolled his eyes at Song Tong. "You think too much? If nothing unexpected happens, this thing in Anna Smith's arms should be the one she designed Zhang Avi to give birth to." Song Si, who didn't know how to describe it for a while, automatically muted himself halfway through. But as a friend who had eaten, drank and studied together for so many years, Song Tong still understood what he meant in seconds, and his pupils dilated instantly. The experiment that Anna Smith made using Zhang Avi, although the adjective experiment is not very friendly, it is not too much to describe the gray-black object. Song Si pulled out a video with some history from his optical brain and put it in front of Song Tong. In the video, Anna Smith rushed into the room in the Zhang family mansion unimpeded. After a struggle, she put the object, which was wrapped in a thin layer of gray-black exoskeleton but could barely be seen as a human figure, into a box and took it away. Song Tong looked at Song Si with his eyes wide open and asked weakly, "Where did you get this private thing?" Song Si curled his lips, smiled but did not answer, and just clicked the time of the video. For Song Si's mysterious behavior, Song Tong used a roll of her eyes to perfectly express her displeasure. But when she saw the date clearly, Song Tong's displeasure disappeared, and some things that she couldn't figure out suddenly became clear. Wasn't that the time when Anna Smith left the Raccoon Planet without a reason, leaving her job as the leader of the Alliance Special Research Group? Back then, in order to fight against that damn Alliance Special Research Group, Song Si had thought of many stupid moves. One of them was to take advantage of Anna Smith but only provide her with male mutants without any eggs. In order to complete this task, she helped Old Man Li Bangsha to identify the mutants for more than a month. After finally delivering the goods, Anna Smith disappeared. Unexpectedly, she actually came to the capital planet to pick up her experimental subjects. In this case, the question is, how could the experimental subject that Anna Smith valued so much become like this? Puzzled, Song Tong cast his eyes into Anna Smith's arms. This time, he was no longer a businesslike attitude, but added a bit of fanaticism. Having achieved his goal, Song Si looked at Song Tong, who was like chicken blood, and curled his lips with satisfaction. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 607 Variables. Song Tong lived up to Song Si's expectations and rushed towards the experimental subject in Anna Smith's arms. Song Tong took out many things from the space buckle that Song Si had never seen before. After a while, he shook his head at Song Si. After all, they were siblings who had lived together for so many years. Song Si understood what she meant just by her actions. This guy, whether from the perspective of humans or other species, has no possibility of survival. Song Si had a complicated feeling about this discovery. As an experimental subject that has a blood relationship with Tang Fan and a connection with the sheath beetle. If it is still alive, Song Si really doesn't know how to face it. But even if it is a corpse, Song Si, who has always been calm and composed, doesn't know how to face it. Song Si hesitated for a long time, but couldn't help but take a photo of the scene in front of him and sent it to Tang Fan. I don't know if it's because the signal is not good or Tang Fan takes too long to think. Half an hour later, Song Si received a reply from Tang Fan. My last name is Tang. These 3 simple words can explain all the problems. Song Si understood Tang Fan's meaning in seconds and quickly arranged everything that followed. However, the trap beast still fights. What's more, it was Anna Smith, a 7th-level pharmacist. The moment she woke up and understood her situation, Anna Smith raised her claws. This person at the top of the pyramid of genetic research did not hesitate to open her light brain and sent 2 already edited messages under Song Si's nose. One was about genetically modified people. Song Si only glanced at it and signaled Song Tong to announce the current status of the experimental product named Titan in Anna Smith's arms, and then ignored it. But Song Si couldn't take the other message released by Anna Smith lightly. After all, the harm of genetic modification has long been in front of Song Si. Song Si is also very clear about the influence of mutable biological extracts on mecha casting. It is precisely because of this clarity that he feels guilty and at a loss. It is also because of this guilty conscience that the response of the expeditionary force lags behind a lot, and naturally interested people see the clues. A few years ago, Tang's Mecha was still a small enterprise in need of reconstruction. Now, it has become a giant that surpasses Zhang's Mecha, and many people covet it. When the news of Anna Smith came out, many people thought they had found the secret of Tang's Mecha's success. The expeditionary force's originally smooth investigation operations suddenly fell into deadlock. Considering the plasticity of mutants on the performance of mechas, many people's attitudes towards mutants have changed 180 degrees. Some people even proposed a motion for Anna Smith to make up for her mistakes. This change was unexpected by Song Yuanshi. A new wave of game is inevitable. For a time, the Alliance entered a high-incidence period of meetings. In 3 months, there were no less than 300 meetings of all sizes. However, There was only one topic: should mutants be eradicated? Based on the harmfulness of mutants and their influence on mechas, the number of supporters and opponents was basically the same. After 3 months of discussion, both sides finally put aside their prejudices and reached a consensus. The Union government allows the existence of mutants. But out of consideration for the safety of life and property of the people of the Union, the breeding range of mutants should have restrictions on the number and area of different species. And the first approved area is none other than the Land of Sin built by Jim Field. Chapter 608 Lucky Man. In this battle between good and evil, although Song Yuanshi had tried his best, he still failed in the end. With a strong sense of guilt, Song Yuanshi went to the Land of Sin in person and brought the bad news to the researchers who were cut off from the news. But when he really set foot on this barren land and saw this group of innocent and simple researchers who were not good at speaking, Song Yuanshi could not say a word of the words he had prepared along the way. Researchers may be taciturn, but they all have a smart head and a pair of eyes that are good at finding problems. Although Song Yuanshi did not say anything, everyone read something from the apology on his face. It was just because of the difference in status that everyone looked at each other and did not dare to speak. Finally, it was old man Li Bangsha who couldn't stand it anymore and stood up and said directly, "Everyone here is our own family. We meet each other every day. What can't we say? Is it really that embarrassing for you?" Song Yuanshi looked at old man Li Bangsha's hair, which had been dyed with autumn frost, and then looked at the group of cute children behind him. He had been thinking about what to say for a long time, but it died again. Seeing Song Yuanshi's embarrassment, Adjutant Mo Xian couldn't help it anymore. He stepped forward and said what Song Yuanshi wanted to say but was embarrassed to say, in an absolutely fair and just perspective. Time was not very abundant, so Mo Xian chose to make a long story short. It only took Mo Xian 3 minutes to summarize the 3-month game from Anna Smith's sudden attack to the final result. Although Mo Xian's words were brief, the amount of information in them was not small. Although they had not experienced it personally, old man Li Bangsha and Tang Fan and others could imagine the difficulties Song Yuanshi had gone through. But moving away from the sinful land and seeing that the place where everyone had stayed for so long and worked hard to build up had become a breeding farm for raising mutant creatures because of the ulterior motives of some people, that feeling was simply heartbreaking. Not to mention this group of innocent researchers, even Grandpa Li Bangsha and Tang Fan couldn't help but frown. In the silence, Mo Xian's voice couldn't help but soften, and he swallowed his words in defense of Song Yuanshi unconsciously. Grandpa Li Bangsha was silent for a long time, and still asked unwillingly, "Is there no room for maneuver?" Song Yuanshi took a deep breath, closed his eyes silently, and shook his head. The last bit of light in Grandpa Li Bangsha's eyes also disappeared. Looking at the two bosses' dejected appearance, Tang Fan, who was originally a little resentful, suddenly felt relieved. At this point, they had to move whether they wanted to or not, so they might as well act early and strive for greater benefits. How can we maximize the benefits? Miss Tang Fan touched her chin, squinted her eyes, and looked around. When her eyes touched the sparkling diamond star, the little sister laughed abruptly. The malicious laughter broke the deathly silence, making many people shake off their goosebumps and attracting everyone's attention. It's not the first day that everyone knows each other. When they heard Tang Fan's laughter, they knew that this guy had come up with another good idea that would torment people. But I don't know who the lucky guy will be. Chapter 609 Moving. Song Yuanshi raised her eyebrows and asked tentatively, "Have you come up with any good ideas, Ah Fan?" Song Yuanshi's voice was not loud, but it stopped Tang Fan's exaggerated laughter. Realizing that she had lost her composure in front of so many people, Tang Fan's pretty face couldn't help but blush. Tang Fan took a deep breath, turned around with forced calmness, curled the corners of her mouth, and said slowly, "The Alliance government only said that this piece of land will be used to raise mutant creatures, right?" Song Yuanshi thought about it and nodded. The angle of Tang Fan's mouth rose a little more. Since it is used to raise mutant creatures, the requirements for the various planets in the area under its jurisdiction are not high, right? Upon hearing this, the expression of Song Yuanshi, the old fox, immediately became subtle. "You mean?" Miss Tang Fan nodded, confirming Song Yuanshi's guess. Then he stood up and said righteously, "Diligence and thrift, hard work, are the traditional customs of our alliance. As an excellent citizen of the alliance, we must carry out this custom throughout. Minerals, plants, buildings and equipment are all precious resources of the alliance. We should protect them instead of abandoning them. As for raising mutants, there are so many barren planets in the Gamma Star region, the Little Bear Star region, and the Bemin Star region. Tang Fan's impassioned speech successfully shocked everyone present. Even a well-informed politician like Song Yuanxi had never encountered such a shameless plunder of resources in such a righteous way. But everyone still damn thought her words made sense. Gamma Star region, Little Bear Star region, Bemin Star region. The places where the Alliance discovered mutants, the previous lessons of planets that turned from abundant resources into barren planets, were all there. If the Alliance really put mutants here, with the habits of mutants, this place would soon become a barren land. Rather than leaving these precious resources to be wasted by mutants, it seems that it is better to let Song Yuanxi take people away. The smart but simple scientific researchers were brainwashed by Tang Fan's words. They actively responded to Tang Fan's call and used their professional knowledge to wholeheartedly make plans for emptying the land of sin. When scientific researchers show their enthusiasm in action, nothing can resist. Soon, a detailed relocation plan was placed in front of Song Yuanxi. Looking at the plan that was not only detailed but also fully operational, Song Yuanxi hesitated for only 3 minutes and agreed. However, he did not intend to carry it out personally, but sent Song Si. There is no way. Who let Song Si's image of a dandy who is crazy about love have long been deeply rooted in the hearts of the people. Without violating laws and regulations, it is normal for Tang Fan to move a house or something. Even if the land of sin is emptied, at most people will say that he is crazy for love. If Song Yuanxi did it, I'm afraid it would be on the headlines of Starnet in the next second. In less than 2 hours, the whole alliance would analyze his motives, influences, pros and cons from all aspects, politics, economy, military, history, culture, nothing would be left out. This is the difference between the Alliance Marshal and the Alliance Major General. There are some things that a young and frivolous Alliance Major General can do, but a mature and steady Alliance Marshal cannot do. Chapter 610, Pampering. Although it was Tang Fan who proposed the suggestion, and she could talk freely in front of Song Yuanxi and the crowd, when she heard that the plan was to be carried out by Song Si, the bold Tang Fan's heart suddenly skipped a beat, and an inexplicable sense of guilt arose. How long had she not contacted her nominal boyfriend? 1 month or 2 months? She didn't know if she could get a reprieve by video messaging her boyfriend now. Tang Fan stared at Ying's back teeth, and with a complicated expression, he sent Song Yuanxi to the farewell starship, then counted on his fingers, waiting for his boyfriend to arrive in fear. Song Si came faster than Tang Fan expected. Tang Fan was not mentally prepared, and was blocked by her boyfriend who had just taken office. Looking at her boyfriend with an obviously unfriendly expression, Tang Fan screamed in her heart that it was not good. Miss Tang Fan had a first-class ability to judge the situation, and found that it was impossible to hide, so she quickly made the decision to take the initiative. The young lady took a step forward, came to Song Si, stood on tiptoes, put her hands firmly around his neck, and called softly, "Boyfriend." The girl's slender arms gently wrapped around her body, and a faint fragrance came to her face. Coupled with a pleasant name, the atmosphere suddenly became charming, and the anger in Song Si's heart was inexplicably dissipated. Song Si lowered his eyes and looked straight at Tang Fan without saying a word. Looking at Song Si's dark and inexplicable expression, Tang Fan became nervous. If acting coquettishly can't appease Major Song's anger, then she can only use her ultimate move. Tang Fan sighed, and her slender arms suddenly exerted force. Major Song, who was unprepared, was pulled by her, and his neck lowered, and his thin lips were imprinted on the girl's red lips. The girl who succeeded in the sneak attack looked at Major Song, whose expression was no longer ugly, and smiled with satisfaction in her heart, but she didn't show it on her face. She just called out softly, "Boyfriend." The girl's voice echoed in her ears, and the warm breath hit her cochlea. Even if she was very angry, she could only surrender silently under this attack, reached out to hug her back, buried her face in the girl's neck, and closed her eyes. Who let her choose this girlfriend? What else can she do? Of course, spoil her. But Major Song didn't know what the girl in his arms was thinking. In his eyes, the soft and sweet girl, in her beautiful big eyes, was full of helplessness at this moment. My boyfriend is too clingy, what should I do? Who let her choose this girl? Of course, spoil her. It's not an exaggeration for a boyfriend to like kissing, hugging, and lifting up high. Miss Tang Fan generously bought one get one free, and gently pecked her boyfriend's handsome face. The familiar warm feeling, even if it was separated at the touch, could not escape Major Song's keen five senses. Major Song's eagle eyes opened sharply, and his deep gaze fell accurately on the girl's lips. In the sunlight, the rose-like red lips were unusually soft and tender, which made his eyes dim. Since his girl was so proactive, if he didn't respond, wouldn't he be letting down the beauty's feelings? Major Song's Adam's apple moved slightly, and the big hand on the girl's waist seemed to have consciousness and moved to the back of the girl's head. After fixing it firmly, Major Song couldn't wait to lean over and kiss her fiercely. Tang Fan was stunned for a moment, and his fingers subconsciously pressed against his shoulders, but he didn't push him away. Instead, he closed his eyes and danced with him, immersed in the intimacy of this moment. Chapter 611, True Feelings. Although Song Si is a major general, he always has a careless and lazy vibe. But his kiss is not only focused, but also has an irresistible domineering feeling. The little girl was trapped in his slender hands, and he kissed her for a long time until his breathing became rapid. Song Si reluctantly let her go, lowered his head and rubbed her forehead with his side face, and whispered, "I miss you so much." Song Si's voice was so light that it sounded like a sigh, but it was full of attachment that was about to overflow. Tang Fan, who was locked in his arms, was stunned for a moment, smiled and kissed his cheek. "I miss you too." Song Si lowered his head, rested his head on her shoulder, and whispered, "Liar. You miss me but don't you dare to contact me." Seeing Major General Song's childish and angry posture, Tang Fan couldn't help laughing for a while. Although she didn't laugh out loud, the slight tremor that she couldn't suppress still betrayed her. The next second, Tang Fan clearly felt the arm locked around her waist tightened a little, so tight that she had difficulty breathing. "It hurts," the little girl groaned softly. The man resting his head on the little girl's shoulder, his long eyelashes like crow feathers trembled slightly, and gritted his teeth and said, "What's this little pain? Can it compare to his heartache?" After being left out for 63 days by his girlfriend, he only called her boyfriend twice and said an insincere "I miss you too." The most annoying thing is that this little liar dared to laugh after being exposed by him. Major General Song childishly counted Tang Fan's crimes, and the more he counted, the angrier he became, but the arm that was locked around the little girl still loosened slightly, symbolically. If it weren't for the fact that his breathing was a little smoother, Tang Fan, the person involved, might have ignored it. Miss Tang Fan couldn't help but glance down at the arm locked around her waist, and had a new understanding of how stingy Song Si was. The man who had been paying attention to the little girl not only did not miss the fleeting glance, but also accidentally misunderstood. He lowered his head viciously, bit the girl's red lips lightly, and snorted, "Don't try to distance yourself from me." Tang Fan laughed secretly in his heart. It seems that her boyfriend is not only stingy, but also possessive. It is said that there is a little boy living in every man's heart, and Miss Tang Fan has seen it today. But what can I do with the boyfriend I chose? Of course, spoil him. The girl tried her best to tiptoe and kissed Major General Song's chin steadily, and explained softly, "I don't miss you, nor do I mean to keep a distance from you. I don't contact you because I want to cooperate with you to complete the task." Although he didn't know how sincere the girl's words were, and this explanation could not satisfy Song Si, Song Si's emotions were still calmed down a lot because of the girl's coaxing. However, he didn't show it, just quietly hugged his girlfriend, listened to the girl's chattering, and occasionally made an onomatopoeia to cooperate. As for the task assigned by Marshal Song, don't be in a hurry. It won't be too late to come back after he and his girlfriend have talked their hearts out. It's just to empty the land of sin. It's a piece of cake. He can finish this task within the specified time even if he holds his girlfriend. Mr. Song Si, the Major General of the Alliance, is so confident. As for how the top leaders of the Alliance will feel when they see the empty land of sin, Song Si didn't take it to heart at all. Chapter 612 Accountability Letter. Everyone was not without complaints about Song Si's sacrifice of public affairs for personal interests. However, when everyone, led by Xiao, watched some people being affectionate and showing off their love, and was successfully choked, this little bit of dissatisfaction immediately disappeared. As singles, they silently vowed that as long as Song Si did not take Tang Fan to show off their love everywhere, they could completely overcome all difficulties and complete the small task of moving without Major General Song's presence. Even Major General Song Si himself and his planet could be towed away by a transport starship. There was no bumps throughout the journey, and it did not affect the love affair at all. Major General Song only needed to write a task summary afterwards and give a 5-star rating. The requirements were that simple. Of course, the accountability letter sent by the top leaders of the alliance was not within their capabilities. Everyone pushed, and finally, as expected, this arduous task was handed over to Xiaodao. Xiaodao, who always liked to test the edge of death, did not look much better when facing the accountability letter in his hand. His girlfriend is still in a laboratory, waiting for him to marry her. But the conditions given by everyone are also very tempting, unconditionally staggering his vocations for him. Xiaodao accepted the letter of accountability and walked towards the destination step by step. From a long distance, he saw the silhouettes of 2 people standing in each other's arms through the window, and felt a strong sour smell of love. A deep despair suddenly hit his heart. But thinking about the conditions given by everyone, thinking about his girlfriend who he hadn't seen for a long time, Xiaodao raised his hand resignedly, knocked on the finely crafted door, and then counted silently in his heart. 1, 2, 3, 48, 49. The door opened. Songsi stood in front of him with a frosty face, raised his eyes and glanced at him, and said coldly, "You better be in trouble." Xiaodao felt inexplicably that this look might be the last second of his life. He swallowed his saliva, tried to stay calm under the other's eyes, and handed the letter of accountability to Songsi steadily. Looking at the familiar light blue envelope in front of him, Songsi rubbed his back teeth, tutted his tongue, and reluctantly took the letter of accountability, letting Xiaodao go. Songsi's slightly dissatisfied voice reached the ears of the people behind him. The little girl couldn't help but turn her head and saw the light blue envelope in his hand. She asked curiously, "What is that?" In the interstellar age, paperless technology has long been realized, and letters are really uncommon. Not to mention a little girl like Tang Fan, even Songsi, if he didn't have a martial father, might not see this thing a few times in his life. Songsi's fingers, which were about to open the envelope, paused, turned to look at his little girl, and smiled. "Do you want to see it?" Tang Fan glanced at Xiaodao, who was gradually petrified by Songsi's question, and a trace of hesitation flashed across his face. "Can I?" Songsi glared at Xiaodao, who was dumbfounded, turned around and pulled the little girl into his arms, lowered his head and kissed her forehead, and smiled. "It's not a confidential document, you can see it if you want, it's okay." Seeing that the little girl was still hesitating, Songsi turned his head and glared at Xiaodao again, then gently took the little girl's hand, slowly opened the mud seal, took out the accountability letter inside, and unfolded it bit by bit. Xiaodao, who was given 2 cold stares and forced to eat a mouthful of dog food, felt that his whole body was glowing. He closed the door with tears in his eyes and left the scene as quickly as possible. Obviously, he also has a girlfriend. Why does he always feel that he is in a fake relationship compared to Songsi? Chapter 613 Revenge. Hearing the door closing and footsteps, Songsi curled his lips in satisfaction. The little girl in his arms didn't notice it at all. In addition to the fact that Xiaodao's movements were very gentle, all her attention was attracted by the letter of accountability in her hand. This was the first time the little girl had seen an official letter in her life. In order to show her importance, the little girl read it word by word. However, the voice became lower and lower, and lighter. The more Songsi listened, the more he felt something was wrong, and he couldn't help but frown. "What's wrong?" Tang Fan's hand holding the letter was trembling slightly. Although he didn't say a word, Songsi still saw some guilt in her eyes. Songsi suddenly laughed. "Don't think about it. This thing is just used by the old guys in the alliance to scare people. There's a pile of it on my old man's desk. This matter is not as serious as you think." Tang Fan glanced at him, and the word suspicion was almost written on his face. Songsi, who finally had some understanding of her own credit, touched her nose awkwardly and wrote a reply in front of Tang Fan. Major General Songsi's handwriting was just like his personality, with a sense of carelessness and laziness. Although the words were polite, Tang Fan always felt that the words in the reply had a familiar taste. What about respecting the traditional customs of the alliance's thrift and hard work? What about strictly following the requirements of the alliance's laws? What about the alliance's resource conservation law? These seemed to be the words she used to fool the researchers of the land of Sin, but Songsi did not hesitate to use them to fool the alliance's top leaders. If Tang Fan said there was anything wrong with this, it would be like slapping himself in the face. But if this made sense? Tang Fan's face was really not that thick. The girl in a dilemma simply turned her face aside, out of sight, out of mind. Song-si noticed the girl's little action and couldn't help but curl the corners of his mouth. Considering that the girl was thin-skinned, he didn't dare to expose her. It had been so long since he had written, so it was inevitable that Major General Song was a little rusty. Add to that the diplomatic rhetoric that went around in circles, and Major General Song was also feeling overwhelmed. If it weren't for the fear that his little girl would blame herself, Major General Song might have gotten furious. It took more than an hour to finally write a reply. Song-si couldn't wait to stuff the thing into an envelope and asked Xiaodao to personally deliver it to the capital star. Xiaodao, holding the light blue envelope, wanted to cry but had no tears. He was a lieutenant colonel of the Alliance, and he had to go to the capital star to deliver the letter in person when Adam was about to leave the customs. This was clearly revenge. He knew that Song-si had a strong desire for revenge, but he didn't expect it to be so strong. Did it just interrupt his date? As for it, Major General Song-si seemed to understand his inner complaints, and left 2 words as for it, and closed the finely crafted door in front of him, and continued to talk about love. Xiaodao, who was stuffed with dog food, held the thin envelope and resigned himself to the capital planet to report. It was not difficult to go to the capital planet. But it was not easy to report the letter on behalf of Song-si. Especially when the boss's lazy words were combined with the words of Miss Tang Fan. Not only did Xiaodao become a cannon fodder, but even Song Yuanxi and Song Yuanshui were interviewed. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 614 Interview. Song Yuanxi sat in the military department with his sword drawn and his horse in hand. He was so calm that he didn't look like he was being interviewed, but rather like he was on vacation. As the Marshal of the Alliance, there were not many people who could put on airs in front of Song Yuanxi. The few who did, most of them supported Song-si's move to empty the land of sin. As for the few who were naysayers, Song Yuanxi also had his own way. When he met someone who wanted to present facts and reason with him, he would show off Tang Fan's words. The reason why Tang Fan's words appeared in Song-si's reply was almost all his credit, and his understanding was much deeper than Song-si's. In addition, he had been in the officialdom for many years, and was much more proficient in official language than Song-si. He could say the same words in different ways and could not finish them for 3 days and 3 nights. Although he was not as good as Huge Kongming, who was good at arguing with a group of scholars, it was not a problem for him to overwhelm those naysayers who were looking for trouble. If he met those who talked about family matters and feelings with him, Song Yuanxi and Song Yuanshui would immediately turn into an old father who was worried about his family. The troubles of having an older unmarried young man at home would take 10 days and half a month, not to mention 3 days and 3 nights. It was not easy for his son to have a crush on a girl, and the girl he liked was outstanding in appearance, the kind that everyone gave a thumbs up to, so he had to support her strongly. The research environment that the girl had built with great difficulty was about to be destroyed by mutant creatures that knew nothing and only knew how to eat. Years of hard work were about to become a bubble, so he had to cry a few words. In order to please his sweetheart, his silly boy did a little stupid thing without violating laws and regulations. We are all parents, we all understand. What? You said you are not a parent? That's fine. We have all been young, we all understand. You know it on the left and you know it on the right, as if you say you don't understand, you will become an ignorant person who has no youth and does not understand love. With these 2 tricks, Song Yuanxi not only dominated the military, but also crushed all the top leaders of the alliance. Song Yuanxi was like a tortoise that had shrunk into its shell, making it hard for people to eat him. After talking with Song Yuanxi for a few days, since no one could do anything about him, the top leaders of the alliance could only accept it and swallow this loss. Not only did Song Yuanxi walk out of the military in one piece, he also took away several boxes of nutrients from the military, saying that he had talked too much these days and needed to replenish water. The nitpicking people in the military who tried to steal a chicken but lost a rice were so angry that they blew their beards and glared at Song Yuanxi, who had gotten the advantage but still acted cute. Song Yuanxi pretended not to see it, carried the nutrients up to the starship in the Savage Star region, and walked away on his own. After all, there were a group of foxes of all sizes in the Savage Star region waiting for him to go back and divide the spoils. 762 planets, big and small, were moved out of the land of Sin. Now they are all assets of the expeditionary force. As the nominal owner, he has not seen any of them. And the little girl Tang Fan has been in the land of Sin for almost a year and has walked everywhere. Even old man Li Bangsha has been in and out of the land of Sin several times. And he only looked at the catalogue. If this goes on, I'm afraid he will suffer sooner or later. This won't do. After all, our Marshal Song Yuanqi's life principle is, you can have anything, but you can't be sick. You can eat anything, but you can't suffer. Chapter 615 Malnutrition. Unfortunately, even though Marshal Song Yuanqi had visited every planet on the list, he still didn't get any advantage at the Spoils Division meeting in the Savage Star region. The Expeditionary Army, which contributed the most, got very few planets, and most of the planets fell into the hands of Miss Tang Fan. As compensation, the Expeditionary Army's mechas for the next 20 years will be fully responsible for Tang's mechas. On the surface, the Expeditionary Army did not suffer any loss, but Song Yuanqi always felt that something was wrong. However, Song Yuanqi quickly let it go. Because after the Expeditionary Army took over the Central Army and searched the first academy of the Alliance for 3 months, they finally found a laboratory hidden deep in the school to cultivate insect nests. It is said that when the laboratory was discovered, many soldiers with intensive phobia fell ill on the spot. Without saying a word, Song Yuanqi took Song Si and hurried to the capital star. Unfortunately, before Song Yuanqi arrived at the capital planet, the thousands of insect nests in the laboratory were divided up by knowledgeable people. What Song Yuanqi faced was not only an empty laboratory, but also the ugly human heart of greed and profit. Most of them only remembered the impact of mutants on mechas, but seemed to have forgotten the threat of mutants to the environment and humans. Song Yuanqi also tried his best to persuade them, but most of them did not understand Song Yuanqi's painstaking efforts, and only regarded him as a profit plunderer to guard against. Some people even directly mocked Song Yuanqi, who came to persuade them. As a pioneer in mutant biological research, Anna Smith suddenly went from a prisoner to hot commodity, and was jointly guaranteed by many alliance bosses, under the euphemism of making meritorious service while serving her sentence. Anna Smith's self-help plan may not be very clever, but she succeeded. When she walked out of the detention center, Anna Smith turned her head and threw a kiss to Song Yuanqi in full view of everyone. It was unknown whether she did it intentionally or on purpose. Song Yuanqi climbed up from a military school student to the position of marshal step by step. His key cultivation skills were getting better and better, but he still failed at this moment. Looking at the dark-faced Song Yuanqi, Anna Smith's smile became even bigger. Looking at Anna Smith's arrogant appearance, Song Si narrowed his eyes slightly, walked straight forward, and blocked her sight. Without waiting for Anna Smith to move, Song Si opened his thin lips and silently said 2 words. Just one name suppressed Anna Smith's arrogance and made her lose her army. Watching Anna Smith leave, Song Yuanqi couldn't help but ask curiously, "Who is Titan?" Song Si pursed his lips, and for a moment he didn't know how to describe this poor and pathetic child. He could only drag out his information on his light brain and put it directly in front of Song Yuanqi. Song Yuanqi read it word by word, and finally understood the lethality of the word Titan to Anna Smith. However, even as smart as Song Yuanqi was, there was still one thing he didn't understand. That child? Song Si put away his laptop and said in a deep voice, "According to Adam's analysis, he should have died of malnutrition." Malnutrition? Thinking about the appetite of mutant creatures, and then thinking about Anna Smith's life like a street rat in recent years, Song Yuanqi seemed to have realized something. Chapter 616. Did he die of starvation due to malnutrition, or, Song Yuanqi just started talking when he was interrupted by Song Si? Is it fun to dwell on this now? Marshal Song, if you see through it but don't speak it out, the world will be a better place. Song Yuanqi closed his mouth silently. What the truth is indeed not that important. Anyway, whether he likes it or not, Anna Smith has already put the blame on him, or the Expeditionary Army. The feud with Anna Smith has been established. Moreover, it is the kind that will not end until one dies. It is really unfair. But there is no place to complain. Marshal Song Yuanqi, who is unwilling to suffer a loss, only felt toothache, headache, and pain all over his body. It is impolite not to reciprocate. Since Anna Smith did it on the first day of the month, don't blame him, Song Yuanshi, for doing it on the 15th day. Song Yuanshi quickly gave Anna Smith a big gift in return. This guy not only donated the evidence brought back from Anna Smith, the remains of Titan, to the Alliance History Museum, but also held a donation ceremony live on the entire network. Seeing Song Yuanshi repeatedly taking out Titan as a negative example, Anna Smith smashed everything in the room. Tang Fan, who is in charge of the overall situation in the Savage Star domain, was amused by this chicken-pecking game and expressed deep regret for not watching the live broadcast. In order to maintain his wife-loving personality, the newly appointed Major General Song Si-song considerately presented his girlfriend with a 360-degree all-round live broadcast without dead ends. Miss Tang Fan, who was deeply satisfied, turned around and gave Major General Song Si-song the new mecha she had just developed. This is not the kind of stuff that is used to fool people at the new product launch conference, but the first mecha in the entire alliance that can be operated by both mental power and manual operation. Although this thing is still in the trial stage, and there is still a lot of room for improvement, Major General Song Si, who received the new mecha, still likes it very much. Not only because of the mecha itself, but also because it carries the heavy love of his girlfriend. His girlfriend is a good girlfriend, and the mecha is also a good mecha. The happy Major General Song Si cannot show off the new mecha given by his girlfriend. This happiness is immediately discounted if you add mental power operation training and later use reports. The joy of receiving the new mecha disappears in an instant. If it weren't for his girlfriend's online teaching every day, it's not necessarily a bad review. Although mental power operation of mecha and manual operation are not the same system, the difference is not as big as imagined. Anna Smith's ownership has not yet been settled. Song Si can already skillfully control his new mecha with mental power. Gossiping with Miss Tang Fan while practicing, don't be too happy. Major General Song Si-song is talented and his learning ability is naturally not weak. By the time Anna Smith's destination was determined, Song Si's mental power operation was already as accurate as manual operation. Although the accuracy was not yet optimal for mecha design, and there was still a lot of room for improvement in proficiency, Song Si and Tang Fan were not in a hurry. They both felt that it was just a matter of time. In order to satisfy Miss Tang Fan's curiosity, when Anna Smith left the capital star and went to the Little Bear Star field to be a mutant breeder, Major General Song Si personally saw her off and live broadcasted the entire process. Chapter 617, The Wife Follows the Husband. Major General Song Si is a typical straight man. His girlfriend needs some gossip, so he remotely controls the video equipment to shoot Anna Smith's face, without considering the heroine's psychological feelings. Tang Fan, who is far away in the wild star field, can't help but curl his lips when he sees Anna Smith's stinky face at the dead angle. Anna Smith finally stepped over the crowd of reporters and waved away the video equipment that Major General Song Si almost hit her face. Before she could start to mock, she saw the strange yet familiar face on Song Si's optical brain. Without anyone introducing her, Anna Smith confirmed that the person opposite the optical brain was her masterpiece and her cheap niece by blood. Miss Tang is so powerful that she can actually order the Major General of the Alliance to run errands for you. Auntie, I am so relieved. As soon as Anna Smith said this, there was silence all around. There are many legends about the appearance, life experience, history of wealth, and love history of Tang Fan, the head of Tang's mecha. This girl has always been low-key. She has occasionally held press conferences, but she has always handled her affairs in a business-like manner and never mentioned any private matters. It is precisely because of this attitude that everyone has always been very curious about Tang Fan's gossip. Anna Smith's 2 sentences contained a lot of information and successfully attracted the attention of all reporters. Everyone successfully ignored Anna Smith and pointed their cameras at Tang Fan on the other side of the star network, waiting for her response. Tang Fan knew that Anna Smith was shameless, but she didn't expect that she could be so shameless. Just 2 bland sentences put her in a dilemma. Whether she responded or not, she was destined to become the biggest topic of conversation in the Alliance today. The smile on Tang Fan's face disappeared in an instant, and a hint of sarcasm appeared at the corner of his mouth. How can an ordinary citizen like me command a Major General of the Alliance? I just ordered my boyfriend to do something. Sorry to disappoint Professor Anna Smith. Before Anna Smith could speak, Tang Fan continued, in addition, As a citizen of the Alliance with good conduct, I really don't dare to recognize Professor Anna Smith, the ant who is hated by everyone in the Alliance. As soon as these words came out, Anna Smith's face suddenly turned the color of liver. Just as she was about to speak, Song-si got the upper hand. Who doesn't have two annoying relatives in their lifetime? Professor Anna Smith just cheated your whole family. You have to forgive her when you can. Considering that she is about to go to the Little Bear Star region to feed mutant creatures, please say less. Tang Fan glanced at Anna Smith, whose face was getting uglier and uglier, and curled his lips. You say that easily. If you have a relative who acts like an elder, raises mutants all day long, uses them to make genetic drugs, and threatens to use them on you, before Tang Fan finished speaking, Song-si shuddered in a very artificial way. With exaggerated acting skills, he expressed his wholehearted resistance to such relatives. Although this performance was eye-catching, it successfully expressed his deep thoughts and feelings. Of course, making the reporters present and the onlookers behind the Star Network laugh can only be regarded as a pleasant surprise. Chapter 618 Misunderstanding. Who doesn't have two annoying relatives? But there are not many people like Anna Smith. Just listening to her, I feel that I can't afford her. Coupled with Song-si's exaggerated performance, everyone's empathy was aroused at once, and the way they looked at Anna Smith was the same as when they saw their own annoying relatives. In an instant, the entire Star Network was filled with rejection of Anna Smith. Anna Smith saw that the situation was not right, and she bit her lower lip decisively and said pitifully, Ms. Tang, blood relationship is engraved in our bones, and there is no point in denying it. Seeing that Anna Smith mentioned it again and again, everyone's attention was once again on Tang Fan. In this situation, hiding was impossible, and Tang Fan could only fight. Since Professor Anna Smith is so persistent, I can only talk about my life story openly. I don't know much about the laws of the Alliance, and I would like to ask everyone to give me some guidance after understanding the truth. Back then, Professor Anna Smith took advantage of her position to illegally detain my biological mother and abuse drugs, causing her to have sex with others while under the control of drugs, resulting in pregnancy. As the leader of all this, Professor Anna Smith violated those Alliance laws? How do I prove it? Can I send her to the Alliance prison? How many years can she be imprisoned? With a calmest face, he revealed his deepest scars and said the cruelest words. Tang Fan's actions were so sad that everyone who heard them cried. Everyone looked at Anna Smith's expression and felt that something was wrong. It's okay to express your contempt and disdain nakedly, and it's normal to look disgusted. It's okay to keep a distance and be on guard and vigilant. As for the one who built a building on the Star Network, popularized the Alliance law for Tang Fan, and strongly suggested that the professor's professional title examination should include the Alliance law. What does Anna Smith's trouble have to do with other professors? We don't take this blame. Anna Smith glanced at the boiling Star Network. Her face was as black as the bottom of a pot, and her mind was full of resentment. As expected of Tang Meng's daughter, her acting skills are really inherited. This performance of pretending to be strong can be included in the textbook. She relied on this trick to take down the boy from the Song family, who served her and worked tirelessly to deal with herself. I didn't expect that a failed test product could force herself to this point. Anna Smith clenched her fists, trying to hide the hatred in her eyes, lowered her voice, and explained softly, Miss Tang, do you have any misunderstandings about me? Anna Smith's pretentious appearance caused Tang Fan strong discomfort. As for the misunderstandings she mentioned, Tang Fan didn't want to understand it at all. But she didn't want to understand, but there were many people who wanted to know. For example, Miss Zhang Awei, who was walking slowly with her ex-husband. The conversation between Professor Anna Smith and Miss Tang Fan is being broadcast live on the internet. Do you mind if I watch it live? Let's sort out what happened back then at once to avoid any misunderstandings that would occupy public resources and affect everyone's public image. Although Zhang Awei looked much older due to the effects of the drug, it did not affect her temperament at all. When she was confronted, she was cool and cool. Tang Fan's impression of her changed a lot in an instant. Chapter 619 Scum. However, why did Zhang Awei suddenly come here? And she didn't forget to mention another person involved, her ex-husband, her cheap father, Mr. Willie Smith. The most important thing is that the head of Zhang's mecha seemed to support her a little more in his tone. Tang Fan didn't believe it. This was a coincidence. She secretly gave her boyfriend a wink, and Song-si shrugged directly, spread his hands, and made his position clear. This big Buddha has nothing to do with him. Tang Fan was wondering. There were 3 short and 1 long knocks on the window. She looked in the direction of the sound and saw the old man Li Bangsha with white hair and beard. Before she got up, the old man smiled and waved his hand, pointed to the light computer where he was broadcasting live, and made a cheering gesture to her. Tang Fan had been unable to figure out something just now, but suddenly, he had the answer. Old man Li Bangsha has been curing diseases and saving lives all his life, and has never coveted any rewards. At the age of old, he violated his principles for his own sake. This love that transcends blood ties is the family affection in her mind. The family affection that she cherishes. Looking at her boyfriend on the other end of the video, and then looking at the kind old man Li Bangsha, Tang Fan's calm face suddenly bloomed into a big smile. That sudden smile was like the sun dispersing the dark clouds, like spring melting the ice and snow, like a rose suddenly blooming, making people feel happy. Song-si, who was always paying attention to his girlfriend, suddenly thought of something and couldn't help but smile. Everyone has a consensus to be open and honest, so let's sit down and talk. I don't know who should start. As soon as Song-si said this, the scene suddenly fell into dead silence. Especially the Smith siblings, their faces were as black as the bottom of a pot, and they looked at Song-si with obvious unkindness. Some things, you can't say them in public, in front of various media, pulling the parties together to discuss what they did in those years. What is the difference between public execution? This incident was a big scar for Zhang Awei. But looking at the girl who looked 70% like Olivia on the other side of the video, and then looking at the unspeakable expressions of the Smith siblings, Zhang Awei's displeasure in her heart because of the black history was suddenly reduced a lot. Since you are all unwilling to speak, let me speak. Zhang Awei opened her red lips slightly and spoke in a calm tone. Just one sentence caused a commotion inside and outside the venue, and even on the Star Network. No matter when and where, the gene that loves to read gossip, which is rooted deep in the hearts of human beings, will not change with evolution. For these commotions, the knowledgeable Ms. Zhang Awei directly ignored it and made a slow opening statement. How can a person live a lifetime without encountering a few scumbags? As soon as these words landed, the noise inside and outside the venue suddenly returned to calm. In front of her ex-husband, the operation of classifying others as scumbags made the entire network as quiet as a chicken, and also suffocated many people. I thought Zhang Awei's words were a bit too much. But when everyone quietly listened to Zhang Awei's description of the past, and when she laid out the actions of the Smith siblings one by one in front of everyone realized that describing some people as scumbags was not an exaggeration, but rather a little insufficient. Chapter 622 Stories. Ms. Zhang Awei's story is not complicated. A young girl who is not good at judging people is introduced to a Phoenix man by a good friend and the younger brother of her ex-girlfriend, and uses drugs to create a fait accompli. She gets pregnant before marriage and gets married for the sake of her child and love. The story is not long, but the amount of information is a bit large, and there are many key points. But from Zhang Awei's mouth, the precise words, without any subjective assumptions, and the straightforward narration are quite attractive. Ms. Zhang Awei has changed her overbearing image, and there is no malicious slander in the process of narration. It's like a woman who is crazy about love, and finally wakes up, enduring the pain to tell someone else's story. People's imagination is endless. Zhang Awei's slight pause, in everyone's mind, automatically becomes unbearable to look back. Zhang Awei's concise words, in everyone's eyes, automatically become vague. The few thousand words that Zhang Awei wrote likely turned into a million-word love novel spontaneously when it came to this group of people who were just watching the show. Unfortunately, Zhang Awei, who was telling the story, did not seem to be the heroine in the story. It was really sad and tearful. How much courage does it take to tear open the wound for everyone to see? In an instant, hundreds of millions of people in the alliance began to feel sorry for Zhang Awei, who had met the wrong person, and became hostile to the Smith siblings. Countless condemning eyes fell on the Smith siblings, which was quite a bit of a condemnation. Zhang Awei had tasted the taste of absolute victory for the first time in so many years against the Smith siblings. Zhang Awei had mixed feelings in her heart. No one knew that every word and every action of this speech that made her win was scripted. She was just an actor. She glanced at the author of the script, the youngest major general in the alliance. At this moment, he was concentrating on looking at the girl on the other side of the video, fearing that she would be hurt a little bit. This is what love should really look like. And the sweet words Willie Smith said, the love letters he wrote, The roses and gifts he gave were nothing but a series of self-deceptions. She was not Willie Smith's white moonlight, nor was she his cinnabar mole. Willie Smith had never loved her, nor had he loved Tang Meng, whom she had regarded as a rival for half his life. From beginning to end, he only loved himself. Sadly, she had lived for most of her life, experienced ups and downs, and only today, when she saw her two children, did she understand. Zhang Awei smiled bitterly and cast her eyes on Tang Fan on the other side of the video. Miss Tang, do you have anything to say after listening to me? Tang Fan was very satisfied with Zhang Awei's move of not giving the Smith siblings any chance to explain and directly handling the right to speak to her. Glancing at the Smith siblings, who looked like the bottom of a pot, Tang Fan mercilessly hammered again. From different perspectives, you will see different things. Since Ms. Zhang Awei has told you the truth, why not listen to my truth? Tang Fan glanced at the Smith siblings and began to tell another woman's love story from her perspective. A 16-year-old girl fell in love with her tutor at the beginning of her love life. She ran towards love without hesitation, but was deceived by her lover and sister, and eventually became an experiment and sacrifice. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 621 Misery. Tang Fan's storytelling ability is no worse than Zhang Awei's. Clear, understandable, and organized. It's just that the tone is a little wrong, and the content of the story is also a little wrong. How come Ms. Zhang Awei and Willie Smith, a single unmarried young man who was driven out of Tang's mecha by the Tang couple, have a different taste in Tang Fan's mouth? He seduced an underage girl. After being discovered by her parents, he used the word true love to prevaricate. Before breaking up, he also took the girl's anonymous credit card and nutritional supplements. He kept saying that he would never forget her, but in less than 3 months, he fell in love with someone else at first sight and married without telling her. When the girl came to him without telling her parents, this guy actually teamed up with his sister to drug her, not only making her unconscious, but also pregnant. Every action of Willie Smith is suffocating. This is not just a problem of character and morality. It is illegal and criminal, no explanation. If we say that Willie Smith in Zhang Awei's mouth is just a scumbag who is obsessed with Bai Yu Guang and cheated on his wife after marriage. In Tang Fan's mouth, Willie Smith is a villain who is two-timing and uses drugs to control the personal freedom of others, and kills people for money. Zhang Awei said it calmly, and Tang Fan said it sarcastically. Although the methods are different, the effects are not far apart. They both use their own ways to beat the Smith siblings to death morally and legally. Faced with such a dilemma, how could Willie and Anna be willing to sit and wait for death? The two looked at each other and began to carry forward the family talent of the Smith family, telling lies with open eyes. Faced with the explanations full of loopholes from the Smith siblings, Tang Fan and Zhang Awei said nothing, just thinking that they were watching another absurd comedy. When the story of the siblings was made up, and the two had seen enough jokes, Tang Fan quietly took out his trump card. First, 2 sets of videos. The video of Tang Meng and Willie Smith talking to each other, and the video of Willie Smith taking Tang Meng away. The second is 2 sets of pictures. The physical data of Tang Meng before she left home and after she was brought back, as well as the tragic comparison of the young girl Tang Meng and the dying Tang Meng in the treatment cabin. The more loving Willie Smith and Tang Meng are in the video, the more pitiful the girl who withered quickly in the photo is. From a beauty to a withered skeleton, it's just loving the wrong person. Such a price is too heavy. It's so heavy that everyone's eyes look at the Smith siblings with a taste of judgment. Seeing Tang Fan's efforts, Zhang Awei also took out her own evidence. First, there are 2 sets of physical data comparison pictures. One set is the physical data before meeting Willie Smith, the physical data in the early pregnancy, and the physical data after giving birth to Olivia. The other set is the physical data comparison before and after giving birth to Titan Smith. The second is the list and receipt of the transfer to Anna Smith's laboratory, and the record of Willie Smith's embezzlement of public funds. Tang Meng is miserable, and Zhang Awei is not much worse. She successfully demonstrated what it means to meet the wrong person and lose both money and life. She just fell in love with the wrong person, and ended up raising a family of vampires. Not only that, but she was also used as a living experiment by some ungrateful people. Miserable. Really miserable. Inhumane. Chapter 622 Subpoena. In the eyes of the Smith siblings, Tang Mang, who lost money and his life for love, and Zhang Awei, who lost money and his body for love, were not smart characters. But they did not expect that one day, they would be forced to this extent by Tang Mang's daughter and Zhang Awei. The Smith siblings had never thought of letting them talk nonsense, then slowly taking out various physical evidence, and then hammering them to the ground. Especially the two videos in Tang Fan's hand that didn't know where they got them from, made the Smith siblings red-eyed, and they looked at Tang Fan with unkindness in their eyes. Looking at the angry Smith siblings, Tang Fan couldn't help but laugh. She pursed her lips, reduced the video interface, pulled out a website from her optical brain, filled out several forms as required, and clicked send after confirmation. Tang Fan's behavior deeply angered Willie Smith. Willie Smith, who felt humiliated, had no other choice but to use his trump card. He roared directly at Tang Fan, "Evil girl." The two earth-shattering words not only scared Tang Fan, but also successfully shocked the crowd. After all, everyone has seen shameless people, but this is the first time they have seen such shameless people. For a moment, everyone sympathized with Tang Fan a little more. The sympathized Miss Tang Fan sighed, slowly enlarged the video screen, propped up her chin, and said slowly, "Mr. Willie Smith may have forgotten that my last name is Tang, not Smith. During my long period of underage, Mr. Willie Smith did not fulfill his corresponding responsibilities. Now, according to the league law, Mr. Willie Smith does not seem to have the right to show off in front of me." Willie Smith subconsciously wanted to refute, but after seeing the half-smile on Tang Fan's face, he stopped talking unhappily. How could he forget the close cooperation between Tang's Mecha, the Expeditionary Force, and the Blue Sea Mecha Academy? Since Tang Fan could get such an ancient and hidden video, how could this guy not save the video that he found at the Blue Sea Mecha Academy? If this guy released those videos, Willie Smith couldn't help but shudder when he thought about it. Anna Smith looked at Willie Smith, who was silent after one round and didn't plan to organize an attack, with anger in her eyes. Since her brother can't do it, she will do it. Anna Smith had just organized her words and hadn't spoken yet, but Tang Fan on the other side of the video laughed again. The next second, the light brains of the Smith siblings rang at the same time. Two identical subpoenas issued by the Alliance Intermediate Court appeared in front of them at the same time. Zhang Awei, who accidentally glanced at it, suddenly understood what Tang Fan, who had been absent for a while, had just done. Seeing the faces of the Smith siblings becoming increasingly ugly because of the subpoena, Zhang Awei was relieved. Since the subpoena was so lethal, Ms. Zhang Awei smiled slightly and chose to copy Tang Fan's process without hesitation. After a while, another subpoena from the Intermediate Court appeared in front of the Smith siblings in time. Looking at the identical subpoenas, the Smith siblings wanted to tear up Zhang Awei. Unfortunately, Ms. Zhang Awei was not afraid at all. Chapter 623 Return Gift. Ms. Zhang Awei smiled and waved to Tang Fan on the other end of the video, then turned and walked towards her aircraft under everyone's gaze. Accidentally, she forgot to take away Mr. Willie Smith, whom she brought with her. Looking at the aircraft that was leaving gracefully, Willie Smith's face, which was originally as dark as the bottom of a pot, became even darker. Anna Smith's expression was not much better than Willie Smith's, because she was stopped by the port staff when she tried to board the ship. The reason? Naturally, it was the two subpoenas from the Union Intermediate Court. Before the two lawsuits were over, Anna Smith's request to leave the Capital Star would be ruthlessly rejected. As for when she could leave, it depends on the final judgment of the Union Intermediate Court on the two lawsuits. In other words, Anna Smith and Willie Smith can only stay in the Capital Star for a short time, and they can't even escape. It's really miserable. Unfortunately, no one expressed sympathy for this. Tang Fan on the other end of the video even said something sarcastic, "Since I was in my mother's womb, I have received a great gift from Professor Anna Smith. Over the years, I have been slow to return the gift, and I feel quite rude. I hope that Professor Anna Smith will like today's return gift." Anna Smith did not appreciate Tang Fan's return gift, but the onlookers said that they liked it very much and did not mind having a few more. Even Marshal Song Yuanqi sent a letter of praise, fully expressing his satisfaction with Miss Tang Fan single-handedly keeping Anna Smith, breaking the plan of the Alliance's top leaders, and allowing Marshal Song Yuanqi to turn the tide. Miss Tang Fan, who had planted willows unintentionally, realized that she seemed to have done something big that affected the Alliance's pattern. Thinking about it this way, it is not too bad to have to go to the intermediate court of the alliance to face the Smith siblings. The bad thing is someone else. Those alliance leaders who had taken a fancy to the big pie that Anna Smith had drawn, and who had finally managed to get Anna Smith out, were now more upset than the other. Anna Smith, who was trapped in the Capital Star and entangled in lawsuits, could not create value for them. If they wanted to benefit, they could only spend more time, energy and effort to help Anna Smith settle this mess. But is it so easy to settle the matter involving the two major mecha manufacturers? After Tang Fan and Zhang Awei repeatedly rejected the other party's lawyer's request for private settlement, the Alliance Intermediate Court finally opened the trial ahead of schedule under the manipulation of some people. Even though these people's hands had already reached the Alliance Intermediate Court, Tang Fan and Zhang Awei were not afraid at all. Given the superior hatred ability of the Smith siblings, there must be too many people who hate the siblings on the Star Network. The righteous will have many supporters, while the unrighteous will have few supporters. When all kinds of evidence about the Smith siblings were gathered from all directions and channels, Tang Fan and Zhang Awei had a new and further understanding of the power of the masses. With all kinds of evidence, if they still couldn't bring down the siblings, Tang Fan and Zhang Awei would have to give up their property. Chapter 624 Dream. Even though the Intermediate Court of the Alliance had long been corrupted, it could only admit defeat in the face of the attention of the Alliance masses and Tang Fan's solid evidence. After a long trial process, Tang Fan's case against the Smith siblings ended with Tang Fan's complete victory. With Tang Fan's example in front, Zhang Awei's victory became a matter of course. The news that Willie Smith was sent to prison by his ex-wife and his illegitimate daughter spread like a gust of wind throughout the alliance. Anna Smith, who was originally released on bail pending trial and was ready to make meritorious contributions, also successfully went to prison for the second time. With the help of people from the entire alliance, it would not be so easy for Anna Smith to get out again. Seeing the two people end up like this, Tang Fan smiled with satisfaction. By solving Anna Smith's problem, Tang Fan also indirectly solved his competitors, and his work became more handy. In terms of materials, there was the full help of Mr. Li Bangsha and Miss Tao Qingxi. In terms of mecha casting, there was the assistance of Zhao Jin and Zhao Jingshu. Miss Tang Fan officially returned to work for only 3 months, and she successfully launched a series of new mechas. Although it was far from being as good as the one she built for her boyfriend, it was far better than all the mechas on the market, and even included the concept machines that were in the research and development state of all mecha casting companies. Because of the launch of this wave of new mechas, the Expeditionary Army's mechas were successfully updated again. 3 months later, Tang Fan held a new product launch conference again. Faced with a mecha concept that Tang's mecha had led for 20 years, and the terrifying speed of updating and replacement, the vast majority of mecha casting companies could only admit defeat. In a sense, Tang's mechas have already walked ahead of the Alliance mechas, and led the new direction of high-end mechas. According to incomplete statistics, after Tang Fan returned to Tang's mechas, the proportion of high-end mechas produced by Tang's mechas has been rising step by step, reaching 72%. This ratio is close to the peak period of Zhao's mecha, far surpassing the once dominant Zhang's mecha. Tang Fan, the young mecha master, finally fulfilled his dream when he was young and hung the golden signboard of Tang's mecha at the highest point that people look up to. Although the dream of his youth has been realized, Tang Fan did not stop. Because she already has a new dream, she wants everyone in the alliance to have a mecha produced by Tang's mecha. This dream is very ambitious, but Tang Fan believes that as long as she works hard, this dream will come true one day. Because this is not only her dream, but also the dream of many knowledgeable people. However, before fulfilling her dream, she must first satisfy a dream of others. In May, the bright and kind sunshine inadvertently penetrated the thin clouds and turned into wisps of golden light, which sprinkled all over the earth and also sprinkled on Tang Fan. Tang Fan finally left the laboratory and came to the capital planet. She looked at the ordinary little house not far ahead and felt unusually cramped. Sensing her uneasiness, the handsome man in the uniform of a major general of the alliance couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. We have discussed this matter for a full half-month. We have repeatedly confirmed every detail and reached a consensus. Right, Tang Fan swallowed and nodded reluctantly. Chapter 625. Song Xinero Dizaizen further confirmed, you also chose the date to go to the Civil Affairs Bureau. Tang Fan swallowed again and nodded. Although Song Si only gave 2 dates, she did choose the latter one. There is no doubt about this. Songsi put his arm around Tang Fan's slender waist and said with a smile, "In that case, what are you afraid of now?" Tang Fan laughed dryly twice. For a moment, he didn't know what to say. He could only pull Songsi's sleeve and said pitifully, "I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. It's just my family's business, you know." Songsi smiled bitterly and shook his head. "Blame me. I didn't give you enough sense of security." Faced with Songsi, who unconditionally bowed his head and admitted his mistakes, Tang Fan was too embarrassed to continue making excuses. He sighed and pulled Songsi backhandedly and walked towards the Civil Affairs Bureau. Songsi, who was dragged forward by Tang Fan, smiled with satisfaction. Since ancient times, deep affection cannot be retained, only routines can seduce people's hearts. The ancients did not lie to me. Look, he just used a little trick, and he got his wife. In the future, he can brag to his children, "Back then, your father was dragged into the Civil Affairs Bureau by your mother." Songsi can laugh out loud just thinking about such a scene. Tang Fan didn't know that her momentary guilt would lead to such serious consequences. By the time she realized it, her daughter was already more than 3 years old, and she was pregnant with a son. Tang Fan, the head of the Tang clan, who claimed to be a mature woman, no longer had the heart and the energy to argue with Songsi, a childish ghost. Seeing that Tang Fan no longer argued with him, Songsi not only did not restrain himself, but became more and more aggressive. As a result, this lie that was not a lie spread more and more, and almost became an anecdote known to the whole alliance. By the time Tang Fan realized that something was wrong and wanted to explain, he had already lost his words. Tang Fan, who had suffered a loss, had thought about settling accounts with Songsi. This was after a long and arduous struggle. Major General Songsi had studied deeply how to trick Tang Fan. Every time Tang Fan came to him angrily, he would eventually be confused by his tricks and forget his original intention. The most common trick? Of course. Fight at the head of the bed and make peace at the foot of the bed. After all, there is nothing that can't be solved by a few sex. If there is, then it's an sex. It's so simple, rough and direct. Of course, this is also the main reason why Major General Songsi has 2 naturally conceived children at a young age. If Major General Songsi hadn't felt sorry for his wife and took the initiative to undergo sterilization surgery, it would be uncertain how many children the couple would eventually have. In the interstellar era, social welfare is quite in place, and the worries of most couples are how to give birth to their own offspring. However, the youngest Major General of the Alliance resolutely chose sterilization surgery because he felt sorry for his wife's childbirth. This was originally just a private matter, but because it happened to Tang Fan and Songsi, it was immediately magnified countless times and even made it to the entertainment news. There are endless discussions about this matter. The degree of sensation is no less than the battle between Tang Fan and Zhang Awei to tear apart the Smith siblings. Some people even posted at Song Yuanxi, Marshall Song, Miziao, and Tangang and Zhao Jingshu on Starnet. The scene was so grand that the family was caught off guard. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.